Isaac Sarason is a skilled hacker formerly employed by British Telecom-Sprint. With his health failing, Isaac did the only thing he could think of. He ran. He found a haven in a working-class district of the city known as Little Russia. There Isaac took on a new name, Ishmael. Within hours of his arrival, he was embroiled in the affairs of a brutal member of Lomidze organized crime family known as Leo. Convinced by a longtime friend, Frankie, to flee from his commitments to the Lomidze family, Isaac found himself hunted by the ruthless Leo. On a rooftop, far from witnesses, Leo murdered Frankie. Only through the use of his skills as a hacker was Isaac able to drive Leo off. Now wounded, alone, and far from help, Isaac depends on the kindness of strangers. What do you do when the only way to save those you love is through the use of proxies? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware Proxy by Colbytrax. Nona was on her feet before he hit the floor. Blood coated her hands as she launched herself at him. Her fists rose and fell as she perforated her would-be rapist, not knowing or caring that he was already dead. Her hand fell 3 times upon her assailant's chest before the door flew open. 2 burly men, bouncers by build and trade, fell upon her. One wrapped himself around her, lifting her from the floor like a child's toy. The other seized her arm and with his oversized fingers pried the shank from her fist. She fought like a wildcat, kicking and screaming. Her teeth flashed as she tried to bite the bouncer holding her arm. The shank fell to the floor, and an oversized fist flashed into the side of her face. Stunned, but still struggling, she kicked weakly at the bouncer holding her. As if tired of the game, the bouncer spun and tossed her onto the bed. His partner pointed the handle of a gun at her. I cried a warning. My Opempa screamed warnings of imminent shunt shutdown. There was a flash of silver. Something caught Nona as she prepared to spring for the open door. She spasmed 3 times. An epileptic seizure racked her body, and she fell to the floor. The bouncer with the handle recovered 2 darts from Nona's blouse. The other bound her hands with plastic restraints and placed her back on the bed. They gathered up the broken form of Stranger 2 and left. I was breathing again. Nona was alive and intact. My blood pressure was through the roof. I grabbed for the sedatives and dry-swallowed one. I watched Nona lie on the bed while the whirring of the shunts in my head screamed out their song of revenge. I forced myself to breathe slowly. I opened the shunt monitor and checked the status of the shunts. They were just starting to catch up with the leakage into my brain. I set them to normal operation, hopeful that with Nona safe they would keep up once again. A line flashed red in the shunt monitor. I opened the notice. I had wasted nearly half the shunt's batteries in less than 5 minutes of operation. If things had gone differently, the shunts would have shut down permanently in another few minutes. I checked the specifications of the shunts. Most devices used a number of recharging technologies. My Google interface for my Opempa used a combination of vibration, solar, and ambient temperature differential. Surely the shunts used something similar. According to the specs, they didn't. The batteries were 1-shot units with an expected lifespan of 6 months. According to the diagnostics, I had burned through 3 months of juice in less than 3 weeks. Just as I was contemplating this new problem, an IRC window popped open. It was Rama. He didn't even bother with saying hello. He just hit me with our authentication routine. I solved the puzzle in less than a minute, all the while keeping my eyes on my shunt monitor. The answer was interesting and appropriate. Relax. He responded a minute later. Found the grandparents, as you requested. Which pair? I asked. Both. It appears your girl was listed as dead along with her brother. The service notice for the funeral says it was closed casket with cremation. Cremation is normal, but the interesting bit is the coroner of record, Ahiram Filatov. Rama's words flashed across the screen. Why is the coroner so interesting? I asked. Things have gotten worse, and I don't have time for mysteries. This is an interesting mystery, Rama answered. It appears that the good doctor was dead at the time he signed the death notice. From what I can see, he signed a good 200 or 300 death notices after he was dead. Either very dedicated, or something more interesting is going on where you are. I laid back and thought about it. I remembered Nona telling me about the Bebias, grandmothers, especially Bebia Chacomia, and the number of orphan girls she raised, most of which were forced into prostitution. I remember something about our co-worker. What was his name? Nicole. Yes, Nicole. Nicole was an orphan as well, raised by Babu Leto. All those orphan boys living in squalor, running errands for the like of Leo. That was what was wrong. The orphans. So many orphans. More orphans without relatives than what would seem possible. In a world where the average life expectancy of a city dweller climbed at a rate of 6 months per year, 150-year-old great-great-grandparents weren't unknown. Hell, my parents were in their 40s when they had me. Fertility extension procedures made the risks of late-life pregnancies a thing relegated to the dark ages. Menopause was optional now until somewhere in the 90s. When I was born, it was the 70s. Think about this. When I was born, average life expectancies was 115 years. According to the projections, I could expect to live to at least into my early 220s. And that is if no major breakthroughs happened in the intervening centuries. From what I knew of the city, the only thing propping up the population was the influx of immigrants and the anti-menopause treatments. Most people forgot about kids until they neared the halfway point of their first century. Everyone, that is, except the poor. The people too poor for the best medicine money could buy. Still, the longevity numbers couldn't be that skewed. Even if life expectancies were the same as they were when the city first grew together, we're still talking 60 to 70-year-old grandparents. Let's say the generations are of a traditional pre-city level, which is only 20 years a generation. There's enough time for a great-grandmother to see her first great-grandchild born, if she's lucky. How many children had the Lomidze family alone taken from their rightful families? How many of them had families that thought they were dead? How many family lines ended in a filthy alley at the wrong end of a knife because some scumbag saw orphan kids as a resource? Is this Hiram character still signing death certificates? I asked. He stopped about 5 years ago, Rama said. There's a new dead doctor doing the signing. Dr. Francis Lloyd Dobbs is the current zombie coroner. How can they get away with this? Surely City Center has accessed all the records. I imagined Rama laughing as he laid his newfound knowledge on me. City Center most definitely can see the records. Problem is that the databases don't talk to each other. The left hand doesn't know what the right is doing, and vice versa. Whoever's doing this has been doing it for a long time. Dobbs is the 6th doctor who signed death certificates while dead in your neighborhood over the last 30 years. I wrote a script to compare the two public databases and found over 5,000 doctors over the last century who've signed after dead all across the city. 5,000? I typed. Boggles the mind, doesn't it? Sounds like you have something for the media, I answered. Not my thing, Rama responded. I just find the facts, not my duty to disseminate. I think you might just want to make an exception this once, I said. Gears revolved in my head. There had to be a use for this, not just as a news story that faded with the next scandal, but as a weapon. Send me the list you've generated with the contact information for Nona's grandparents. There was a way to use it. A way to use it as a wrecking ball to shadow Leo's carefully built china shop. I can hear the gears grinding over there. You've got a use, and it isn't as nice as a news story. I have an idea. Let's leave it at that. What about the regulations regarding prostitution, I asked. You know, you could have looked this up yourself, Rama responded. I've got a medical condition. You seem better now. No 10-minute pauses between responses. Rama came back at me. I'm doing a bit better, but my time is limited, I answered grudgingly. My eyes glanced to the battery monitor for the shunts. I thought it lost 0.5% of charge since I last looked. Probably not. Just being paranoid. Have to check the logs later. Okay, I know when I'm beat. Prostitution is legal in the city. We all knew that. for men and women of at least 18 years of age who are licensed with the city, receive weekly certificates of cleanliness, and who work at a registered bordellos. Why do you need all these boring regs? Planning on starting a new business? Known as 16, and is being held in a bordello. Figured that might help get the authorities involved, I answered. Good luck with that. If your girl's registered dead, it'll be hard to prove her age and parentage, Rama said. Not with your research and... I trailed off. Did I have a record of the attempted rape? Did I record it? I checked the Opemapo Null. Yes, I had recorded it. Actually, the Opemapo Null did it itself now. I didn't trust myself to remember to start the recording software, so I set it up so that the Opemapo Null recorded every video and audio stream it encountered. I watched enough to verify it existed, not enough to spike my blood pressure. And what? Between your research and the footage of the attempted rape I recorded today, I think we might just be able to get child services off its ass, I said, grateful that I was as anal as my ex-coworkers believed I was. Wish I could help out a bit more, Rama responded. It seems you have an honest-to-God damsel in distress on your hands. I thought about the viciousness of Nona's attack on Stranger 2. She might need help, but she was no princess in a tower waiting for her prince. I opened a window on her room and watched as a woman in a worn headscarf changed her bedding and mopped up the blood. Nona stood sullenly in the corner by the window, a bouncer on either arm, her hands still bound. Damsel in distress, yeah, I answered absently. There might be a bit more you could do. Remember when we brought down that kiddie porn server in Siberia? Do I? That was the best bit of work the Brotherhood ever did. 3,000 of the hottest hackers in the world converging to destroy the untouchable kiddie servers of Ust-Limsk. How could I forget? They had something like 32 backups and as many scummy data havens, and we found them all. 33. I smiled as I one-upped him. There were 33. Remember how I found it hidden in the Ivorian pirate haven? From their logs, it looked like they were only a day away from reconstituting the network, but we got them all. Remember the news postings on the forums when we released the names and addresses of the operators to the families of the victims? Rama was way into remembering that run. You have to use the runner's high to get them into the game. Nothing beats being part of something that did some good in the world, even if the results were bad. I remember obituary notices, I said. News, obituaries, same thing when it comes to scum, Rama responded. Think you could get some of the gang together to drop a network for me? Would this be the network of the scum who are holding the little lady? The same, I said. I need the network dropped at 3 in the afternoon city time tomorrow. Think anyone will want to help? Short notice? But there's always a couple dozen guys who get off on smashing scum. Rama answered. What are you thinking? Same thing as Ust-Limsk? Nothing that drastic. Just need the network knocked offline for a couple hours. No leaked names or addresses. It would be too dangerous for the parties affected, I answered. Besides, if I wanted to draw out Mospana, I needed something major to happen, something that didn't lead her back to me. We can do that. Starting at 1500 City Standard Time tomorrow, I can guarantee those networks will be down for 2 hours, Rama said. Without further comment, he left the IRC channel, and I was left to contemplate my next move. Firmware, Proxy, is the second book in the Firmware pentology. That's 5 books, if you must know. It begins moments after Firmware Hijacked ends. So if you haven't heard or read Firmware Hijacked, this would be a good time to head on over to Colbyjack.net and either download the podcast on the audio side, read the episodes on the visual side, or download the Colbyjack Sunday Reader issues 1 through 20 in your choice of either EPUB or Mobi. Firmware, Hijacked, and Proxy are both available in ebook versions from our store at shop.colbyjack.net, amazon.com, and Barnes & Noble. Just search for Colbytrax. That's Colbytrax. I'm the only one. A complete audiobook version of both Firmware, Hijacked, and Proxy is available for download through our shop as well. If you don't need any stuff, but would like to support our work, drop on by Colbyjack.net and hit the pretty little donate button conveniently located on the right-hand side of the blog roll. If you're on a smaller screen, the button will be found at the bottom of the page. Firmware Proxy is released under a Creative Commons, non-commercial, attribution, share-alike 3.0 license. Do what you want with it, just don't sell it, and always tell people where it came from. If you received this from a friend and want more information about Colbyjack.net and our split personality website, just drop on over to Colbyjack.net and select either the audio or visual side. The audio side carries our podcast, while the visual side carries our writings. Whichever side catches your fancy is fine with us. We're of two minds about the whole thing anyway. If you want to get social with me, I do mostly Twitter. So if you do the tweets and want to follow me, I'm Colbytrax. Spelled the same as above, Colbytrax. We could sing that all night long. Thank you once again and have a wonderful week.